longer had any rights that did not depend upon the goodwill and sufferance of Muhammad and the Muslims. And indeed, when Muslims discovered some treasure that some of the Khaybar Jews had hidden, he ordered the women of the tribe enslaved and seized the perpetrator's land. A hadith notes that the Prophet had their warriors killed, their offspring and women taken as captive. Thus, when modern-day jihadists invoke Khaybar, they are recalling an aggressive surprise raid by Muhammad, which resulted in the final eradication of the once considerable Jewish presence in Arabia. To the jihadists, Khaybar means the destruction of the Jews and the seizure of their property by Muslims. You know, it's interesting. If I was a Muslim, I wouldn't mention Khaybar. I would have an insecurity about Khaybar because according to Sahih al-Bukhari and according to Sahih Muslim and according to Sirat Rasulullah ibn Ashaq, according to these very, very high-ranking Islamic sources, Muhammad did not die a natural death. Muhammad was poisoned by a Jewish woman. That's right. A Jewish woman killed Muhammad. Is Pastor Joseph making this up? That is from Islamic history and Islamic hadith. Where was the Jewish woman from? Khaybar. Why did she want to kill Muhammad? Because Muhammad had killed her father and her brother. She was ordered to cook for Muhammad. She cooked a sheep. She inquired as to what part of the animal Muhammad loved the most. They told her the katif, the shoulder. She put most of the poison or much of the poison in the shoulder, an extra dose, if you will. Muhammad tasted of it and spit it out. One of his companions died almost immediately. And for the next 3 years, Muhammad was sickly, and his palate changed according to the hadith. And when he died 3 years later, he told more than one individual the sickness in him that caused his death was the sickness that came from eating that poisoned meat back in Khaybar. I find this very troubling that a Jewish woman killed Muhammad. It seems that Muslims like to make fun of the Christian view that Jesus died on the cross for our sins. He chose to allow himself to be put on the cross to die for our sins. And they say, oh, Allah would not let one of his prophets die such a shameful death. I can't imagine what would be a more shameful death for Muhammad, who hated the Jews, who killed the Jews, who killed 700 in one day in Medina, who attacked them in Khaybar, who did everything he could to drive them out, for him to be killed by a Jew, and not just a Jew, but a Jewish woman, who in Islamic theology and Islamic jurisprudence is worth about half of a man. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Muslims, give me a call, 248-416-1300. Hey, we're coming up on a break in just a moment, but whenever you hear Khaybar, Khaybar ya Yahud, you can remember what the Muslims are talking about, but informed Muslims, I don't think should be saying that because for me, knowledgeable about the hadith and knowledgeable about the stories of the biography of Muhammad, it reminds me of the fact that a Jewish woman killed Muhammad, according to Islamic history. Give us a call, 248-416-1300, if you have a different take on the Islamic history. We find that these different demonstrations are all over. In Libya, rioters are chanting. What are they chanting? La ilaha illallah. Does that sound like a secular democratic chant? I don't think so. Let's take a look at this article. Tripoli. Hundreds of people clashed with police and government supporters overnight in the eastern Libya city of Benghazi, a witness and local media said, in a rare show of unrest in the oil-exporting country. Protesters, angered by the arrest of a human rights activist, threw petrol bombs, set cars ablaze, and chanted, La ilaha illallah, no God but God, in clashes that left dozens injured, according to the reports from the city. Video clip posted on YouTube. It showed this. You can find it on YouTube. And it's very interesting because at the Abu Salim prison near Tripoli, 110 men jailed for membership of the banned Libyan Islamic fighting group were set free. Though local right activists overseeing the release said it had nothing to do with the events that you see on YouTube. Of course not, a la Robert Spencer. Very good. Hey, let's take a look at one more article and a video before we go to the break. Secular Egyptian democracy lovers shouted, Jew, Jew, during their brutal sexual assault of 60 Minutes reporter Lara Logan. In Surah 5, verse 82, it says, "Strongest among the men in enmity to the believers, you will find the Jews." This is coming from Robert Spencer's blog. CBS reporters Cairo's nightmare, Lara Logan, set upon by a mob in brutal sex attack. 60 Minutes correspondent Lara Logan was repeatedly sexually assaulted by Muslim thugs yelling, "Jew, Jew," as she covered the chaotic fall of the Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak in Cairo's main square Friday. Friday, interesting, right after the khutbah, right after the salat and the dua, Muslim men take an American journalist, female, and gang rape her. That is exactly what happened. Let's take a look at this article and then the video before the break. It says the TV crew with Logan, who is also the network's chief foreign correspondent, had its cameras rolling moments before she was dragged off and caught her on tape looking tense and trying to head away from a crowd. Logan was overcoming the jubilation when she and her team and their security were surrounded by a dangerous element amidst this celebration. CBS said in a statement it was a mob of more than 200 people whipped into a frenzy. In the crush of the mob, Logan was separated from her crew. She was surrounded and suffered a brutal and sustained sexual assault and beating before being saved by a group of women and an estimated 20 Egyptian soldiers. A network source told the Post that her attackers were screaming, "Jew, Jew," during the assault. And the day before, Logan had told Esquire.com that Egyptian soldiers hassling her and her crew had accused them of being Israeli spies. Apparently, Logan is not Jewish after all. In Friday's attack, she was separated from her colleagues and attacked for between 20 to 30 minutes, the Wall Street Journal says. As part of an anti-media backlash, CNN's Anderson Cooper had also been roughed up, and ABC correspondent Brian Hartman had been threatened with, guess what? You guessed it, beheading. I wonder why Muslims like to behead. Maybe it's because of Surah 8, verse 12, or maybe it's because of Surah 47, verse 4. Therefore, when you meet the unbelievers in fight, smite at their necks. Let's take a look at this video that just tells us a little bit about what happened in Egypt the other day. And after the video, we'll go to a break, and then our lines will be open to take your calls, 248-416-1300, to hear your views on the news Muslims are making around the world today. We've got a lot more news, a lot more horrible things Muslims are doing. And the problem is everyone does horrible things, but Muslims are doing it in the name of their religion. And if you study their religion, most of the time they're completely justified. That's why we do this show. And most importantly, not only to expose the evil of Islam, but to contrast it, most importantly, with the gospel of Jesus Christ, the true message, the only way of salvation. Let's take a look at that video, and then we'll go to a break, and we'll be right back to take your calls. Let's look at the video right now.
Lara Logan is recovering in an American hospital from an attack that happened while she was reporting in Cairo last Friday. Logan was in the city's Tahrir Square after Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak stepped down. The network said in a statement that she and her team, along with their security, were surrounded by a mob of more than 200 people. Logan suffered, quote, a brutal and sustained sexual assault and beating after she was separated from her crew in the crush of the mob. She reconnected with the CBS team and returned to the U.S. on Saturday. Logan is the chief foreign affairs correspondent for CBS News. She's one of at least 140 correspondents who have reportedly been injured or killed since late last month while covering the unrest in Egypt. CBS says it had no further comment on Logan's attack. Tim McGuire, The Associated Press.
You are watching ABS.